Morning, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our event, The Role of Local Government Associations in Crisis. I am Melissa Borondinovac. I am a Learning and Knowledge Generation Analyst at UNDP. This is the final webinar of our 2025 SDG Local Action Series, an initiative by UNDP which showcase how local governments and regional governments are implementing the 2030 agenda with practical and local solutions. I will share with you in the chat the link to our past webinars that are located in our YouTube channel and in our website. Some methodological suggestions. We have interpretation in English, French, and Spanish. So to access this interpretation, you have to click on a small globe icon at the bottom right and choose your language. Tenemos interpretación al español. Tienen que hacer clic en el pequeño mundo que está situado abajo a la derecha y allí seleccionar el idioma. Nous avons d'interprétation en français. Veuillez cliquer sur le petit globe à bas à droite, puis sélectionnez votre langue. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself, to present your stories, and also to ask questions to the presenters. We are very pleased to have two distinguished panelists that they are going to present two cases. From one side, we have Ladislas Jendahimana, who is a local governance expert and a consultant at UN Habitat in Somalia. And also Boran Ivanovsky, who is the program director at NALAS, the network of associations of local authorities of Southeast Europe. And finally, our moderator, Eric Rosant, who is the Executive Director of Strong Cities Network. And thank you all for being here. We look forward to an inspiring session and welcome, Eric. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Melissa, to you and your colleagues at UNDP for inviting me and the Strong Cities Network to participate in this session. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Strong Cities Network, I'll just say a few words about it. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. We are a global network of now 290 cities across more than 70 countries. Our members are of every size, big, small, urban, and rural, and the network is focused on addressing hate and social polarization and promoting community safety and well-being. The objective is to enable municipalities to tap into their full potential when it comes to understanding threats to building and maintaining social cohesion in the face of rising incivility and division. We do this through in-person and virtual peer learning, awareness raising, training, and advisory work with cities, drawing on international good practices, but tailored to the needs of each municipality. We promote an inclusive whole-of-city, data-driven approach that centers on enhancing collaboration among different parts of a local government and between local governments and relevant local institutions, and critically, between local government and higher levels of government. We are, of course, guided by the needs of our members and with a focus on connecting cities across geographical contexts and catalyzing the exchange and transfer of learnings into local action. And one of the ways we do this is through cooperation with local government associations around the world. We see local government associations as critical partners on all of the work we do. And just a few examples of this cooperation to share before we turn to our speakers. We have been working with the East Africa County Government and Local Government Association, IACLA, for a number of years in connecting with cities across East Africa. And through that, we have been able to have our global learnings shared with IACLA, which then translates these for local governments in the region, shares it with their members, who can then in turn share it with cities in respective countries. So we're working with the regional local government association, which in turn brings in the national local government associations. And the credibility, authority, and experience to make our hate and extremism prevention work accessible, relevant, and digestible for local governments in the region depends heavily on this collaboration with the local government associations, who have an understanding of the role of local government in the region, which that role is going to be different in different regions. And so that's why that connectivity with the local government association is so important. They'll understand the needs of the local governments much better than we can as an international network. Another good example is with the Moroccan Association of Presidents of Municipal Councils, essentially a local government association in Morocco. 2 years ago, we signed an MOU with them, which opened the door for deeper engagement with cities and allowed the localization of prevention initiatives across the country. This in turn led to certain members of the association, such as the city of Fez, to work with us to establish a new youth council in that city that was the result of a multi-stakeholder process involving civil society organizations, youth groups, municipal officials, and other actors. And the association played a facilitating role, connecting cities and promoting the exchange of experiences on youth participation. And we'll be building on this in the coming weeks and months, but that collaboration with the Moroccan Association has led to more than a half dozen Moroccan cities now joining Strong Cities Network and being able to benefit from our global learnings. So we are really excited to be asked to facilitate this conversation, which is a really important one and really shines a spotlight on the important work that local government associations can do around the world. But we've also seen in our work, and this is why this conversation is so important, that these associations, while having a critical role to play, are often overlooked in the solution conversations about issues going on in the region. Obviously, a lot of focus on national governments, a lot of focus on civil society. Certainly, there's been increasing attention on the role of local governments across whether it's SDG implementation or other global frameworks. But in those conversations, we find that local government associations, the critical role they play on peace, security, and development is often overlooked, in part because they're often associated with just associations focusing on basic service delivery issues, budgeting issues, very technical issues. But in fact, they can do much more. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers, and we'll go to Ladislas first to share his perspectives from the work that he's been doing on local governance and with local government associations in the Horn of Africa. So Ladislas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you see my presentation?
Not yet, Ladislas. Now it's more.
Okay.
Now we can see.
Okay, thank you. My presentation, thank you, moderator. As you said, I have been working for the Rwanda Local Government Association for 6 years as Secretary General. And for the last 1 year and a half, I'm advising the Somalia government and the UN Habitat as a consultant to establish a local government association in Somalia. My presentation is going to focus on the two cases, the case of Rwanda and the case of Somalia, particularly the case of Rwanda because the association in Rwanda is now more than 22 years old. The one in Somalia is being established. I will not spend a lot of time there. The context in Rwanda when the association was established 24 years ago, it was in the rehabilitation and the reconciliation process because Rwanda experienced the genocide against Tutsi in 1994. So the local government association was established in the context of reconciliation and the governance reforms. And in that context, the local government association had to take, I would say, two considerations. One, the context that was to be considered, but the way forward mattered more. So for the local government association in Somalia, it is being established with the support from UN Habitat, and the context there, as almost everyone knows, there have been in wars, civil war and conflict and terrorism since the last 35 years. So the country has been damaged, the issue of state authority that needs to be restored, and the focus is about peace building and reconciliation and stabilization, service delivery and local development. And for Rariga, the Rwanda Local Government Association, I will focus on three pillars or three aspects. One is the kind of services that the association is giving to the members. Those services are mainly professional services, advocacy, and representation. And the association, because it has to be positioned into the institutional setup of the country, has been supporting the local government through consultancies, training, organizational assessments, and the particularity of Rwanda, because we have a unitary state, the recruitment of staff in local government has been centralized, and it is being provided by the local government association. And to make this, the association is mobilizing resources from different ways, and it was also as a strategy to work with partners in the government. Throughout that period, because I have been working for the local government ministry for 10 years as spokesperson and policy analyst, but also I worked for the association as secretary general. So I know much about this association, which I can testify about. We have been experiencing two major crises in Rwanda, mainly. The first crisis was the genocide against Tutsi, that 1 year ago. And the second crisis is the COVID-19 pandemic, that is 4 years ago. During the COVID-19 pandemic, this crisis and the pandemic affected mostly local governments because the local governments are closer to the communities, they deliver services, but they had also to build the resilience to assist the population on the ground. As the association to support the local government, the members and the communities at large, we have been preparing policy briefs, conducting researches, organizing policy dialogues, bringing together local government officials and the staff, but also local government and the central government and the development partners within the advocacy perspective. And most of you will remember that Rariga is a voice now, a credible voice in climate action. I remember in 2021, when I was Secretary General, I represented the local government and the municipal authorities constituency to NFCCC, and I delivered the closing statement at COP26 in Glasgow. Most importantly, as a local government association, we needed to set the baseline, we needed to set the targets, but we needed also to measure the impact of our interventions. As Rariga, we put more focus on measuring the impact of associations and their interventions, and we developed advocacy tools. Some of those that the association has developed, I may consider to measure tools that we have developed. One, the local government association in Rwanda developed the SDGs monitoring tool, that is the Sustainable Development Goals monitoring tool, and this was supported by the Commonwealth Local Government Forum and the European Union. In 2023, because Rwanda submitted to the SDGs reviews, the voluntary national review, at the same time, the local government association conducted the first ever voluntary subnational review. And this one was about the Sustainable Development Goals. It was supported closely by the United Cities and the local governments. and worked closely with the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning in Rwanda. And our findings were not only submitted to the UN High-Level Political Forum, but they were also taken up by the government of Rwanda, as the Rwanda was reporting to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum. I may say that these two tools were very important and critical for advocacy work. I say, again, the SDGs monitoring tool that was developed by the association. Second, the voluntary subnational review, which was submitted to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum, and which was also endorsed by the government of Rwanda. As a way, if I may conclude about Rwanda, it is always important for association to consider the capacities we have and the limitations we have, and we devise strategies within those two aspects. What is the scope of control? What is the scope of influence? And what are the limitations? For this, the local government association in Rwanda developed an adequate, appropriate representation and advocacy strategy, which could allow the association to work with the government, with the development partners, and above all, to be relevant to the members. That was one. The representation and advocacy strategy was critical for this. Second, because the local government association needed to support the members in the institutional setup of the country, the local government association in Rwanda, in accordance and in agreement with the members, developed clear strategy and implementation strategy to deliver professional services to the members. We contributed significantly in service delivery, in post-conflict, but also in a crisis situation. And the RARIGA, or the Rwanda Local Government Association, has proven to be relevant. The case of Somalia is critical, and it is special at this time. Since the collapse of the government of Somalia in 1991, they didn't have a centralized, credible government that could support or exercise the state authority on the national territory. So that has been a challenge for local governments to position themselves as critical partners to the government. And in that process, as the government of Somalia now is undertaking the process of peace building, stabilization within a federal architecture, they agreed and they committed to establish a local government association in Somalia. This process is supported mainly by UN Habitat, but the process was supported initially by UNDP, UN Habitat, and UNICEF. But currently, there are two major actors, the government of Somalia and the UN Habitat. They have now defined the constitution, which shall be adopted the next month, but also the strategic plan has been validated in a process, in a consultative process. We shall be having a workshop on Friday or on next Saturday to validate these two instruments so that we can convene the launching event. So the focus for local government association, as it has been defined in Somalia, is to embark on stabilization, restoring state authority, but also positioning the local governments as credible voices in delivering the services. In this, I may end up by saying that local government association needed to play critical roles for the 5 Ps under the SDGs: the people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We believe this is important, and that is how local government association in Rwanda has delivered, climate, governance, service delivery, economic development through advocacy and strategic and operational interventions. I thank you and I submit.
Thank you so much, Ladislas, for that, and lots of interesting perspectives there, and comparing the Rwanda experience to the much more less mature one in Somalia is interesting. It'll be particularly interesting to see how it all develops in the coming years. But maybe we'll turn it over to Boran, who can address maybe some aspects of the presentation before he goes into his presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Eric, and thank you, Ladislas, for your presentation. It's interesting to learn more about the local government associations from that part of the world, because we are focused more here on the Southeast Europe and so on. So Eric, in his introduction, he mentioned that the local government associations are critical partners and that they can do much more than supporting the local governments in their service delivery and so on. So you also mentioned about the Rwanda Association, that they're doing advocacy, but from my perspective, it's very important what is the response of the central government institutions, how they consider the association in terms of the advocacy capacities, and whether they consider them as a real actor and factor in the representing the local government's interest in front of the central government institution. So that would be my point of interest now. Thank you.
Ladislas.
Thank you very much, Baran. The Local Government Association in Rwanda was established as a process of reforms in governance. The decentralization policy was adopted in 2000, and the process of establishing the Local Government Association started in 2001. The establishment of Local Government Association in Rwanda was a result of this government and the governance reforms, and there was a high-level political will to establish a local government association because Rwanda as a country was rehabilitating in the process of peace building after the genocide against the Tutsi, and the genocide is normally and always committed by the state. So that was one element that made the Rariga a credible voice from the start. Second, Rariga is operating within a governance setup. It is registered as a non-governmental organization, but the members are government institutions. Those are all the districts of Rwanda, 30 districts, and the city of Kigali. And this makes Rariga a hybrid organ, a hybrid institution. In this, the government of Rwanda has put in place mechanisms that inform policy actions and decision-making processes. Within that process of advocacy and representation strategy, Rariga divides the strategies to penetrate those networks so that it can represent local governments from within this government setup. And that is why, for example, of the sector working groups in Rwanda, and Rariga is a part of all sector working groups in governance, especially Rariga is the co-chair in the governance and the decentralization sector working group. How this sector works, the Ministry of Local Government is the chair. One of the development partners is the co-chair representing development partners, and another co-chair is from civil society organizations. And the Rariga is the co-chair because it is registered as a non-governmental organization, and this makes Rariga a credible voice because we are advocating from within the setup. Second, all the ministries in Rwanda, because they understand the role of local government because of the decentralization policy, and Rariga is a recognized partner and voice, all the ministries are partnering with Rariga in terms of advocacy and in terms of feedback. When they go for capacity building to go to local governments, they all partner with Rariga because Rariga is this platform which brings together local governments in Rwanda. And these three aspects, the political will from the government, the institutional setup in this country, and this decision-making forums where Rariga has a credible voice and access, direct access, make Rariga easier for it to speak for local government. About multi-level governance, as I said, the most important is the political setup in the country. And the approach in Rwanda, the governance approach, because of the genocide against Tutsi, the constitution of Rwanda has consecrated the principle of consensus building. So there is no confrontation in advocacy that the local government association is doing in Rwanda. The entire process aims at building cohesion, ensuring that the voice is heard, but through the consensus process, consensus building. And that is how, for example, LGA is speaking at all platforms. So for those who attend COPs, the Conference of Parties, LGA is always part of the government delegation. And it is very important to consider this political setup of the country where local government associations are operating. So that is how LGA is doing its things. And we are also getting much support from the government, that is the Association of Local Government in Rwanda. The case of Somalia is still in the formation stage, but in the case of Rwanda, you may say that Rariga is a credible voice and it is now being institutionalized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Boran, do you want to share a little bit about the work that you've been doing in Southeast Europe through the Local Government Association?
Yes, sure. I would like to now to share my presentation and then to explain what we are working with the local government associations. Okay, can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
I hope so.
I said they can see it well.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to start my presentation, first of all, with some few words about NALAS, just to for you to know what is the NALAS about. NALAS stands about Network of Association of Local Authorities of Southeast Europe, and we are a regional organization or the network of associations from Southeast Europe, where we're getting together 14 associations, local government associations from 12 economies, 12 countries from this region. Actually, the authorities coming from our associations that are representing 7,000 authorities elected by 80 million peoples. And here, actually, the region that we cover is starting from Slovenia on the west to Moldova on the east and Turkey on the south. So our main or core mandate of the network of the NALAS is to support or to build the capacities of our member associations, mostly in order to become viable representatives of local governments versus the central government institutions related to the different topics, but mostly related to EU integration of the region, of the economies of the region, and also the decentralization process. And here, when we're talking about the disaster risk management or how the association should react and perform in the situation of crisis, we as a network, we are supporting our member associations in different areas or different topics. First of all, we support them in advocacy efforts, then also build their organizational capacities, but also whenever there is some crisis in the region, in some of our member associations, economies, we are supporting them with the solidarity support. And here I would start with the explanation of our interventions or supporting our member associations for the advocacy, from the advocacy perspective. In order to support them or to build their capacities for advocacy, we would like to support them with the evidence-based advocacy initiatives. So they need evidence, they need the numbers in order to start advocacy initiatives at the national levels. And here on the slide is presented one part of the NALAS Decentralization Observatory. It's a tool that we developed in 2019, composed of 4 main indices and also 99 indicators supporting the 4 indices who are measuring actually the progress of the decentralization process in our region. And out of these 99 indicators, we also developed one resilience index, which is measuring to what extent the municipalities are resilient in our region. And here, as you can see, I mean, maybe this slide is very complex, but just for your information, we are measuring through the indicators on the scale from 0 to 10, where the 10 is desirable position or situation of the municipalities to be. And here, in terms of the resilience, this number 5.05 is the actual average of the municipalities in our region for their preparedness and their resilience to respond in the emergency situations, which means that actually there is still a lot of work to be done in order to strengthen the capacities of the municipalities to become fully resilient. And then also, besides this regional overview of what is the situation in the region as average, we also provide information through this decentralization observatory about what is the status of the resilience in the municipalities in the respective economies that we are covering in our region. As you can see here, there is a diversity of the capacities, and but we are not doing this with the purpose to make a benchmarking only, but also to provide a bench learning, which means that we would like to use the capacities of those that are well developed to share those experiences and capacities to the less developed economies and local government associations in order to support their member municipalities. So this is how we provide these evidence-based advocacy initiatives or support them in the advocacy, evidence-based advocacy initiatives. And also we provide at the regional level, at the level of our region, policy recommendations. And this one, the Plovdiv Declaration on Disaster Risk Management, was actually developed and published in 2015. I would say immediately after the 2014 floods that affected the region of Southeast Europe, mostly in the Western Balkans, Croatia, Bosnia, and Serbia, but also Bulgaria and Macedonia were affected of the, how they call it, the century floods happened in that time. And that was maybe because it was a huge disaster, that was an initiation for us as a network to even strengthen more our support to the local governments association in the disaster risk management. And this policy recommendation, but not only for the disaster risk management, but also for the other topics that we are developing, the policy documents or the policy recommendations are used by our member associations for the advocacy efforts when they negotiate with their central government institutions. You know, this is an official document of the network, which is represented by the 14 local government associations or developed by 14 local government associations. And behind this document are 7,000 municipalities. So besides this policy level support of our member associations, we also, as I said before, we are providing the solidarity support. And mentioning these floods in 2014 that affected Croatia, Bosnia, and Serbia, we immediately initiated the solidarity support, invited all of our members from 12 countries to support the affected countries of the floods. And in that, in 2014, through this mechanism, we actually provided indirectly, not through us directly, but indirectly, we provided 2 million euros support to the affected municipalities in the region. And recently, last year, another very, I would say, isolated flood happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we also introduced this, we activated this solidarity support on the demand of our member association from the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So whenever it happened, some disaster like the earthquakes happened in Turkey recently, we also invited our member associations to provide the support they can do to provide to the affected association. And another case or example is the Albania earthquake in 2019 that affected this country on the coast side. There were a lot of damages on the infrastructure, but also we have a very strong member association from Turkey, who has a huge experience in responding in the earthquake situation. So they actually sent 2 experts to support our member association in Albania in order to provide the technical assistance and the expert support to the affected municipalities. So this is again in the frame of this regional solidarity support between or among the local government associations. Then also, as I said, in 2014, these floods happened. We were even more motivated to support our member associations to provide them with the tools and mechanisms how to react in the situation of emergency. And based on that, we developed this responding to emergency situation guidelines for local government associations, where we provide to our member associations the instructions how to establish the internal structures in a situation within the situation of emergency, how to establish the communication with the central government institutions, how to establish a communication and cooperation with the donor community in order to provide the necessary support to the affected municipalities in their countries. So this is a very practical tool that is available to our member associations if they need. Also, we support our member associations in building their capacities, concretely or particularly related to the disaster risk management. We have established in 2015 NALAC Academy, which is a platform for e-learning. We provide more than 20 courses now for the municipalities in the region. And based on the NALAC Academy calendar that we're publishing every year in the beginning, we are providing a particular or different courses to municipalities to attend. Particularly for this topic, we have Introduction to Disaster Risk Management. This is a very generic, I would say, and a basic course on disaster risk management for the municipalities. But the next two are very interesting, and we developed in the frame of the portfolio that I'm leading in our network for the social inclusion. We developed the social mapping e-learning course, which is related to identification of the needs of the vulnerable people based on the LNOB principle, Leave No One Behind principle of the Agenda 2030. And this social mapping methodology, which is also in the form of e-learning course, is providing the municipalities with the necessary information about the location, the type of the vulnerable people there, and what are their needs. And there is one pillar that we are researching through this mapping related to fragility of the people, of the vulnerable people, to the external influences and factors, meaning the catastrophes and so on. And out of this mapping, the municipalities can have a very good information how to prepare their action plans for disaster risk management, particularly related to the vulnerable groups, because the vulnerable groups are most affected in the emergency situation, and the first response and aid of the municipality should go there. So in this regard, we also have another e-learning course for the municipality, which is inclusive disaster risk management. Exactly how the municipalities to design the action plans which are involving the vulnerable groups, and how to react in order to respond first to these disadvantaged people. So based on these tools, or actually the knowledge products, we are also supporting the municipalities through our member associations. Our mandate is to develop the capacities of associations, but also we are trying to develop their capacities through providing support directly to the municipalities in order to design some tool, to demonstrate some good practice, and so on. So having in mind this previous social mapping and also inclusive disaster risk management, the municipality of Zrenjanin from Serbia, they developed their multi-stakeholder action plan and how to work and to prepare the children and youth with disabilities to respond to the emergencies. So they designed their course, their action plan, and also they implemented some of the measures of this action plan, mostly related to the education and promotion, awareness raising of the disadvantaged youth and children that could be affected in the by some emergency situation. Another case is actually the municipality of Kalesia in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Leže in Albania, who also used our knowledge through the e-learning courses to develop their action plans. First of all, they conducted the social mapping, identified the needs of their vulnerable citizens, and then they designed the action plans for responding in the cases of natural disasters, mostly related to the adults and children with disabilities, but also involving their family members. I would just like to share one finding which is interesting out of these social mappings, which was asking the vulnerable people to whom you are actually asking the support in a situation of emergency, of a crisis, and so on. Usually the the disadvantaged people would say that we are relying on the capacities of our family members, of the neighbors who are in our surrounding, but they never mentioned the structures of the municipalities, the police forces, the fire brigades, and so on, which means that actually they're not informed about, or maybe there are not services designed for this particular target group in the municipalities. So that's why I said it's very important for the municipalities to design or to make, to conduct a social mapping and then to design the local services based on the needs of the vulnerable people. And these services developed and implemented at the local level are very important for our local government associations. They use the good practices and the capacities of the municipalities that implemented these good practices to replicate them for the other municipalities in their countries, but also to develop the policy recommendations for improvement of the situation in this particular area of local governments, and to design the advocacy actions. Also, we organize different webinars and e-learning, actually online trainings for our, and face-to-face trainings as well, not only online trainings for our member associations. Here, as you can see on the slide, which is with a yellow background, because we were very much prepared with our e-academy. In the times of COVID, we immediately intervened in that time with different courses and different webinars in order to strengthen the capacities of our associations, but also the municipalities. Here there is the resilience, is the topic resilience of the waste management services, for instance. I mean, we are not connecting resilience only to the disaster risk management, but also to the other topics or the competencies of the local governments. And that would be it by my side. I mean, those are the activities and interventions that we are doing to local government associations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Boran. And maybe we will give it back over to Ladislas to reflect a bit on what Boran shared and see if you have any questions before we open up the floor for questions from the participants.
Thank you, Eric. Boran made a very good presentation because the analysis is covering a very big territory, diverse, different countries. And in the global south, you have also the issue of disasters related to climate change. That is becoming the global warming. It is a shared crisis. I don't know how we shall mitigate this as local governments. And he talked about the achievements and the context in which they are operating. I would wish to ask him, looking at the achievements and the interventions that they have done for the members, I wish to know what are some of the challenges have the NARAS ever faced that you could share to the participants, because myself, I'm eager to know. Because sometimes the challenges apply across and someone thinks this is a special or particular to this local government association. What are the challenges that you're facing or have you ever faced? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ladislas, for this interesting question. I mean, there are many challenges, but I would like to mention the one that I think is very important. Whenever we introduce the new approach, I would say, that should be implemented by our member associations, that usually is coming from our partner organizations supported by different donors. And that would be one of the main challenges, is the capacities of the associations to accept that new approaches, to change their way of work and so on. I mentioned in the very beginning that we have 14 local government associations as members of the NALAS network. And there we have a diversity of the capacities. Like we have 4, 5 LGAs, local government associations, in the region that are well established and well developed. They have really good capacities. But from the other side, we have most of the rest of the associations are actually small offices. Like they have 5, 6 people employed. And on their plate, they have a lot of local government competencies that they have to deal with. Not only, but because usually the two main core mandates of our associations are advocacy and capacity building related to the local governments in their countries. And then with 4, 5 people, 6 people in your office, you cannot do much. And especially if you have something to introduce new or to face with the new issues, based on this change management, usually people have resistance to accept new innovative things. And then what we do actually, how to overcome this challenge is to apply or to invite those associations who are well developed to support their peers. So that's why I mentioned when I was presenting this the regional decentralization observatory, that we are not making benchmarking just to measure who is the best in the network, who is the worst one, but we would like to provide this principle of bench learning, how to learn from those who are well established and developed. And then we provide to our member associations a very specific services in this regard. Like we have a peer assessment, and that usually when some of the associations which is in need, that needs more to learn and to building their capacities, for a particular topic, they request to the NALAS Secretariat, which is located in Macedonia in Skopje. So we provide this peer assessment and peer support by inviting all of the other members to provide the association in need with the capacity, with the knowledge, with the experience, and so on. And then also, in order to overcome this diversity of the capacities in the network, or to strengthen those that are in need, we also have another service that we are providing to associations, which we call shadowing program. And the shadowing program is something that again, the association in need for the particular topic will ask us in the secretariat to provide this program by either the association in need is visiting the more developed association in the region, and in the course of 1 week, they're learning from their peers in their office, or vice versa. The well-developed association is sending the representatives or the staff of the association to visit and to support the association in need. And this is something which is, again, related to the peer-to-peer exchange and support of the associations. And that's one of our core activities of the network, to establish and to support each other establish the communication, support each other between the associations. And also we have another tool or the service we are providing, which we call a quick response. And the quick response is again on the request of the association in need. Like they're doing some advocacy activities in their country, changing of the law on the disaster risk management, for instance, but they don't know how to do it in some particular segment. And they ask their colleagues from the other associations in the region, from the other countries. We, as a secretariat of the network, we are collecting in the frame of 2 days. Literally, in 2 days, we are collecting necessary information from the other associations in the region. We are compiling the document and sending all of the necessary information based on their request to the association in need. So they use the knowledge again of the other peers and colleagues from the region in order to well develop and conduct the advocacy initiative. So this is how we are overcoming this challenge of lack of the capacities of the associations in our network.
Thank you so much. And now we're going to go. We have a number of questions from the participants that we're going to try to get to as many as possible, but I would bet we're not going to get to all of them, but they'll be addressed or flagged in the summary that our UNDP colleagues will be producing after the webinar. But maybe, and I would ask the speakers to be as brief as possible in their responses, and we'll just sort of go back and forth one and one. I think for Ladislas, I think a very interesting one that came up relates to the lessons from the post-1994 genocide reconstruction, and how the Rwanda Local Government Association was rebuilt post that conflict, and any lessons that might be from that could be shared with LGAs that are going through similar sort of conflicts in their country.
Thank you. The particularity of Rwanda is that the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994 was committed by the state, and the local government officials who were closer to the population were the engine or the perpetrators. So the population had lost trust in the authorities. So the most important one of the lessons learned is to understand that local authorities, because they are closer to the population, they need to be responsive and sensitive about the needs of the communities. Some authorities are selfish, they think about the ego, but the local authorities, one, they need to be sensitive and to understand the community's needs and to be responsive. That is one. Second, is that the local government associations need to be critical because they provide this advocacy role and representation role. So they need to be always alert and to conduct research, to get information, to analyze it, and to provide the feedback to the central government or to local government in order to devise responsive strategies and policies that are responding to the needs of the population. And number three, what we have learned as a local government association in Rwanda, particularly because La Liga was established in that process of rehabilitation after the genocide against Tutsi, is to understand that political interest, local government association could supersede or go above the political interest. Sometimes when you are in a local government association and you are struggling for getting the power, then you cannot serve the communities. You strive to get your position protected so that you can get the maximum you wish you can get. So if I can summarize in three ways back, one, local authorities need to understand that they are the mirror of the population and the mirror of the state. So whatever behavior they adopt, they need to understand that it has an impact to the population. Second, the advocacy needs to be citizen-centered to ensure that the voice of the communities are very well reflected in the designs of the policies. And number three, local authorities sometimes they're in a weak position because they are not at the center of decision making. So the local government association that are positioned in the position of influence and advocacy need to ensure that they have credible information and need to understand that they are not struggling for power, but to ensure that the voice of the communities and the local governments are well protected. Those are the three lessons I can share, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you for being so clear and thorough. That's great. Over to you now, Boran. How do we prepare local government associations to play to really fulfill their potential in crises in the wake of unreliable membership subscriptions and funding? And I think just sort of related to that is the issue of ensuring that LGAs are reaching sort of the more rural and remote municipalities in their country and not solely responding to the demands of the larger ones that may be more influential in the actual association. So I guess those are two interrelated questions about funding and about ensuring that the LGAs are really responding to the needs of all their members, not just the loudest or largest ones.
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, about the first question about the funding and financial capacities of our member associations. As I said before, we have a different capacities, and some of them are really well established in this regard, and they have enough funds, like the association from Montenegro, which is established by the law. So the municipalities are obliged to pay the membership fee, which is, I would say, sufficient for the association to provide the basic services to the municipalities, to their members. But from the other side, we have many of the associations that have no enough funds. And then for that purposes, we are providing different kind of trainings for them, especially for the EU funding opportunities, because now in this global situation of funding, which is not very much good at the moment, we are using the capacities of the EU funds that are available in our region. And that's why we are supporting the associations to develop their capacities, how to design, develop, and apply for the calls of the European Union funds. And this is one of the opportunities that we are doing, and the tools that we are applying for them to avoid or to overcome this situation of the lack of the financial capacities. And in terms of the of how the association should be equal in the access and the providing the services to all of their members, I would say that we are not different than the other part of the world where our societies are very much polarized and politicized as well at the moment. So our member associations are the associations of the municipalities represented by the mayors coming from the different political parties. And that's one of the main principles of our member associations, equal opportunities to be provided to all municipalities. So they're very much careful about this issue, especially, for instance, many of the mayors are coming from the different ethnic background, from the minority groups in the Balkans, especially because we are very much multicultural societies. So that's another perspective that the associations should take care into and to take into consideration when they develop their services to the member municipalities, not to put someone in a disadvantaged position because of the ethnic background of the mayor or the political affiliation of the mayor. So the associations usually are involving all of the representatives, no matter of the size and the political affiliation of that representation of the municipalities in their governing bodies, but not also only in the governing bodies of the associations, but also in the expert bodies. All of our associations that develop different types of commissions and committees related to local government competencies. So in all of these structures of the associations are involved, I would say, on an equal base, different representatives. And by that, our associations are taking care for equally to all of their members.
Thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze in one more question for each of you before we conclude. So I just ask you to be very brief in your response. If you're not brief, I will make you brief. Ladislas, this is, I think, a very relevant question for a lot of LGAs around the world, which is the relationship between ministries of local government and LGAs. And how do you see that relationship playing out in whether Rwanda or Somalia? Is there an overlapping of jurisdiction sometimes? Is it competitive? Thoughts?
Shortly, LGAs are registered as, for example, in Somalia, it is registered, it is governed by the civil law, and it is stated as a non-profit organization. That is the law governing, under which we are establishing the local government association in Somalia. It is the same in Rwanda. The local government association is registered as a non-governmental organization, which means that the local government association are non-state actors. And this puts basically local government association in a position of advocacy, but not in a position of decision-making. That is critical because local government association cannot make decisions on behalf of the government. And the local government association needed to devise an adequate strategy for advocacy. Otherwise, there shall be confrontation between LGA and the ministries in charge of local government, and what is generally called the struggle for, or the power struggle. But in Rwanda, there is this provision in the constitution, which is about consensus building. That means the decisions are taken through the process of consensus. There is no confrontation in decision making. And there's generally in Rwanda, I may say that LGA is lucky to have a country which has a strong political will, which is supporting the association to deliver to its mandate. In Somalia, we are still in the formation process. One of the concerns that is still coming out is that issue you are raising of power struggle, where the ministries think that if a local government association comes in place, then the power shall be taken from the ministry to the association. So that could lead to a level of confrontation and conflict, and that would lead to vulnerability for the association. I think it is critical for the associations to have appropriate advocacy strategy and representation in order to avoid the confrontation, because if in the case of confrontation, then the ministry can exercise the powers because it is about the state. And sometimes this puts the LGA in a vulnerability position. But in Rwanda, it is good that the association is well protected by the state, but in other countries, it might be a different situation.
Thank you. And then last question, Boran, very quickly, if you could, and this might be hard to answer quickly, but what advice do you have to bring partisan associations together to work collaboratively across the sector? So you mentioned multiculturalism, different ethnic groups. Any learnings from how you bridge those divides in the work that you do in your association?
I mean, it's our approach is this decentralized cooperation, which is also very important in the region. If you want to establish a good communication and cooperation between LGAs in the region, that's something that is necessary. And this decentralized cooperation means that we all together, we are sharing the same values, but we also share the experience and knowledge in order to support each other. So that's something that is my advice, I mean, for how the associations could cooperate each other, but also this is very much replicable at the local level. I mean, the associations themselves, they can use the same approach in order to get together their member municipalities and to exchange the knowledge to strengthen their capacities.
Thank you to both of you for your experience sharing. It was really valuable, I know, for me, and I'm sure for our audience. And I would just say in conclusion that if there's one takeaway from these two presentations, it's that local government associations are really important in today's world in bridging divides and in integrating issues and solutions for and with local governments, and they deserve support, financial, political, and otherwise. So thank you to UNDP for highlighting the importance of local government associations and addressing some of today's most difficult challenges that communities are facing. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And have a great day.